is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
All right, welcome into another edition of Three Ball. I am John Kurtz. I am joined by Cole Manbeck today, and we have a very special guest. As you can see, if you are on YouTube, a part of the YouTube audience, we have former K-State head coach Frank Martin with us, and we are incredibly thrilled to have him on the show, something I know Cole and I have been looking forward to for a while. A guy who, while we were in school, gave us some really, really awesome memories with those teams in Manhattan. So before we get rolling, do have to mention him. We should say having a guest like this is worthy of a toast. We always say everything's worthy of a toast, but it certainly is when we have Frank Martin on. So make sure and get your Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon and your 360 vodka from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Great K-State people who help support us on the pod. So get the Ben Holiday Bottled and Bond Bourbon, get on Cole's level, and make sure you're supporting the cause there. But Frank, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you for taking some time for us. You're now at UMass, where you just won 20 games last year. It was their best season wins-wise in a decade. Obviously, you spent 5 great years at K-State as the head coach, another as an assistant. But just update us on life these days up in the Northeast. How are things going at UMass?
Oh man, it's they're going great. This coaching profession has changed so much in the last since COVID hit. It was starting to turn right before COVID, but excuse me. But ever since COVID hit, it's just kind of I don't know. It's a different profession than what it was before COVID, and all the way around. And I'm not being critical. It's just different. And us dinosaurs like me, we're having to make major adjustments to understand how to fit in, not to survive. I've never been one to do my job to survive. It's about how to fit in to continue to impact people the way that we signed up to do it. And you're seeing a lot of old coaches retire because they don't want to be a part of this new norm. And I'm kind of caught in between. I'm older, but I'm not yet there at the finish line, and I'm still excited about doing my job and figuring this out. And but everything's going great, man. I'm real happy. It's my daughter was born in Massachusetts. I married Anya, my wife, here in Massachusetts. She was a star track athlete here at UMass. So everything is going good. I'm in a good spot.
How cool was it, Frank, to have the opportunity to kind of go back to your roots where you started? I mean, at Northeastern, I know it's Boston, but you and Anya got married in Boston. You met when you were an assistant, dated when you were at Northeastern, and just to have the opportunity to kind of bring her back to her alma mater at this stage of your career, how unique and special was that?
It was, I had to like my daughter was going into her senior year of high school when this job, became an opportunity. And we had conversations about, if she did not want to move, I wasn't taking any job. And, I had some job offers, and I couldn't approach my daughter about moving to those parts of the country. So I very, respectfully declined the offers. And then this one was offered. And because of all the things you explained, I kind of, before I even went to my wife, I went to my daughter and I was like, what do you think of this? And she was like, yeah, Dad, I want to play volleyball, and being up in the Northeast, I think would open up a different world for me from a recruiting standpoint, a college opportunity standpoint. And the schools that she was looking at were actually in the Northeast. So I went ahead and then spoke to my wife. And at first, she wasn't like jumping for joy about it because we had spent 10 years in Columbia. And so she had established a lot of friendships, just like we do. Imagine if we had spent 10 years in Manhattan, Kansas. I never would have been able to pry her away from there. We still, some of our closest friends still live in Manhattan. But she then reconsidered and said, yeah, let's do it. And then I engaged, and away we went. And then the adjustment was fun. Everybody was excited until it actually happened. And that first September, when my daughter's at a brand new school, away from all her friends, and my wife's away from we lived in the same house for 10 years, and away from the circle of friends that she had, and then Cole, you're going to find out that mother-daughter relationship starts taking a turn a little differently at age 17. You're going to find, and you got two of them. You're going to find out, and then here's the and like Stone Cold likes to say, and here's the bottom line: you're getting drug into it, big boy. It's going to be your fault. So, but no, everything worked out great. They're happy. I'm happy. It worked out for my daughter. My wife's really excited. It's been great to have her back, so our kids can understand. See, our kids only knew her as my wife. They didn't know anything about her successes, and being here has made them understand how successful she was when she was a college athlete, and so it's been fun that way.
Well, I know you alluded to this just a bit a second ago, how much the game has changed. I mean, it's wild when you think back to your time at K-State and where we're at right now, like all the changes in the landscape with NIL and the portal. And I mean, it's just a completely different world. Like, how specifically have you had to evolve as a coach? Like, what are the biggest things that you've had to change and tweak over the years since then as a head coach to be able to thrive in this environment?
Oh, man. The hardest thing for me is when everyone talks about NIL and transfers. The biggest rule I'm having to manage is I can no longer hold players accountable for their off-the-court activities. So if they don't go to class, I can't do anything about it. If they want to go in the community and get into stuff, I can't do anything about it. And not in the community. That's what you do for community service. You want to go out socially and get into stuff. I can't do anything about it. To this day, if you guys ever have Michael Beasley, I know you guys had old William Henry Walker on the podcast the other day. He and I were texting each other. If you ever had Michael Beasley, ask him who was the best tire flipper in the history of K-State. He'd volunteer. He said, me, because every time he missed class, we'd make him come in and flip that big old tractor trailer tire at 10 o'clock at night. And that was the way of holding him accountable, so he understood how to embrace responsibility, because all he knew was, I'm going to play basketball. And he raves about that. He raves about going through that and how that helped him. And that was our way of letting everyone else on the team know, like, if you don't go to class, you're going to flip that tire. And we can't do that anymore. They've taken that away. All I can do is talk to a player. Hey, you got to go to class. I had a guy sit here and say to me, I'm not going to class. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not going to class? I'm not going to class. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I can make the whole team run as a team activity, but that's going to create a fight because the other guys had nothing to do with it. Why are they going to run? Because some dude didn't want to go to class. And now I got a problem on campus. Now I got to suspend multiple players. So, and then my job's on the line if I don't play guys. And we don't win games. And if I'm sitting guys for not going to class, that's the one I struggle with the most. But the NIL, the transfers, the NIL should have been put in a long time ago. I don't know if you guys remember me publicly speaking in 2010 when all the people around Manhattan started making the shirts that said "Fear the Beard" with Jacob's face on it.
Yeah,
the NCAA came in and said, the companies in town, everybody, you have to stop making those shirts because his face is our property and cannot be used that way. And to make any kind of money. That's the first time I said, wait a second, this makes no sense. And I started behind the scenes really hammering away like, man, what are we doing here? This makes no sense. And this has to change. So I should have been introduced in a positive way, in a way to build, and it's like what we did is we jumped into the deep end of the pool without ever taking a swimming lesson. Is what we've done, and now we're all yelling because people are drowning, and it's, well, guess what we did? It's but my biggest the next one for me is the transfer. I never agreed with the transfer deal the way it is. I thought we should tweak it. If coaches leave, players should be allowed to leave. But if coaches don't leave, I think that should be owned. And I don't want to bore you for this whole podcast with that side of the thing, but it's a deep. My opinion there is deep, and there's a reason it's deep. And like when I made the decision to leave K-State, those guys should have been allowed to leave and play right away. When I got fired at South Carolina, those guys should have been. I think they were, because it's already the new rules in place. But guys should have been allowed to leave and not have to sit right away. So I don't know. And then the marriage of introducing transfer with no repercussions and NIL, that marriage has created a major, major problem in college athletics in the world of recruiting. Because now, and introducing the agent. Think about all these rules that all got thrown in all at the same time. Introducing the agent to the equation. So to give you guys, like, let's say you guys are on my team right now, and we get ready to play Texas Tech. And I wasn't going to say Kansas, okay? I wasn't going to do it. That's a word that kind of still to this day is not part of my vocabulary. The state is, but the university's not. But we get ready to play Texas Tech. And we're in a meeting, and I'm going over scouting reports, and, hey, we got to make this guy do this guy do that, blah, blah, blah. Meeting ends. I'm going home consumed with Texas Tech. The guys in the locker room are going to check their DMs, and they got agents and AAU coaches and all kinds of people telling them, like, hey, if you play well tomorrow against Texas Tech, I got a school that's ready to give you this much money when the season ends. And that's the world we're living in right now, man. And it's wild. This ain't hard. You know what hard is? Going out in middle Kansas and baling hay. That's hard. You know what hard is? And I used to say when I coached there, and I never forgot, driving in the heart of winter 2.5 hours to come watch us play Tuesday night and go back to work the fields at 6 a.m. the next day in western Kansas. That's hard. This isn't hard. This is just wild. This is like, to quote Kansas, this is the wild, wild west. This is the old cowboy days. It's but it is what it is, man. We got to figure it out. We can't complain about it. We just got to figure it out.
Well, our show is brought to you, of course, by our friends at Home Field Apparel, and I have to admit to you that I messed up a little bit today. I should have just thrown on a Home Field t-shirt because my power was out for the last 10 hours right before we started, and my AC hadn't really fired up, so it's kind of hot, and I threw on the quarter zip, and it's making the glasses fog up because I've been hot in here, So if you're wondering why it looks so goofy on YouTube, that is why. And if I were just wearing my Home Field Apparel t-shirt, maybe my Copper Bowl t-shirt, maybe a Wildcats script action going on, maybe you could rock the Big 8 Champs shirt from back in the 70s that they have as a part of one of their K-State lines. All that would have been fine, and I could have avoided some of this. But instead, I'm embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. Get Home Field Apparel. Get to homefieldapparel.com. They've got 50-plus K-State designs, 100-plus other teams that you can branch out to as well. It is the best college gear around. Everybody is wearing it. I am seriously not exaggerating. Go check out their Twitter account if you want proof of that. But you can get 15% off your first order with promo code 3MON23. Again, 3MON23 is that promo code for 15% off your first order with our friends at Home Field Apparel.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
And I feel like you have such a unique perspective on the NIL aspect, not only because of what you said about fear of the beard, but you saw in your time at K-State, Michael Beasley, Bill Walker, think about the money those guys could have been making in NIL back then. And obviously Jake too, by the time he was done, Rodney McGruder, so many of those guys could have been making so much money. It kind of leads me into one of those things that I feel like K-State fans always like to believe that, hey, if NIL had been around, maybe Michael Beasley sticks around another year. You think if that were the case at that point, there was a chance that guys like that would have stuck around a little longer?
Yeah, Mike, what K-State did for Michael Beasley was so powerful. He did not want to go. We had to say, Mike, you have to do this. You can't You're cheating yourself, man. We sent Bruce Schingler. I don't know if you guys remember the name. Bruce was a young, like, administrative assistant on my staff. We sent him to live in Miami Mike's first year, just to have somebody there to not guide Mike. Mike was a man, but to be there to support Mike. And he did not want to go. I think old William Henry, he's become an adult now. It's no, but I say that jokingly because he and I, while at the end of our time together at K-State, we butted heads some. We've become very good friends now, and that's the beauty of coaching and player relationships, man. It's never easy when you're in it. Very few coaching player relationships are awesome when you're in the moment, but it's the way they grow and become as you get through your career and you move forward. But he and I think he said it on your deal that if NIL was going around, he would have stuck around too. And
yeah.
And here's the other part. Being at that school, the way K-State fans love their guys, they would have stepped up to make it really hard for those guys to leave. The K-State people would have been unbelievable to figure out a way to keep those guys around.
Frank, I'm curious. So Jacob Poland, they're going to put his jersey in the rafters at some point, and really they were waiting for his playing career to be done for them to be able to do that. But also, Jake's made it very clear that he wants you to be there when that opportunity occurs. He doesn't want to do it without you there because you were such a key part of his career and his life. Is there any chance that you would maybe schedule K-State and come back home? We'd love to see you. Or is that something, would you view that as a distraction to your team and want to do it when you're not coaching?
Yeah, I'd be open. When I first left, for obvious reasons, it was not something I wanted to do. But it's been 12 years, man. It's that place is dear to us, dear to me, dear to my family. I'd be, Jake needs to get his jersey put up there. He did too much for that school to not own that moment, and sooner rather than later. So it's if I've got to schedule a game out there to make it happen, I'll be more than happy to. Jerome and I actually have not spoken about it for no reason. We just haven't spoken about it, but I'd be very open to playing a game at K-State if it can help make that. Even if I don't schedule a game. Jake, that should happen sooner rather than later. And I love, here's, we're talking about all these old guys, Jake included, Denny Clemente, Jacob, Bill, they all want to get into coaching. Jordan Enriquez, Shane Southwell, Curtis Kelly, those guys are all coaching already. They all want to get into coaching. And that shows the kind of people that we tried to recruit there. That it wasn't just a hustle to play ball and then disappear. It was the kind of people. I wouldn't be surprised if Rodney Magruder gets it. Rodney's going to get it either. Rodney's got two choices here whenever he retires from playing. He's either going to get into coaching, be a great coach, or he's going to model skinny jeans. He's going to be the greatest skinny jean model in the history of the world. I hope he sees this too.
Oh man, that's great. Well, hey, I heard you say, so you have a podcast that you do, UMass Just Being Frank, and obviously you have a great setup there. Yours looks better than mine, Frank's. But anyway, so I heard you tell a story on that pod about Curtis Kelly on his recruiting visit, and they were throwing rocks at your, I think, goldfish, or your kid's goldfish that you just got put in. I'm just curious, any other funny stories that maybe we haven't heard, best Jacob Poland story, or any stories that you want to share about your time at K-State that maybe we haven't heard before?
Oh man, we can do a whole podcast on recruiting. That group they weren't easy to coach. Now, people forget my first year as a head coach. I don't think this is known publicly, but I coached without a contract my first year. They could have fired me like on a Tuesday morning for zero. They could have told me go walk and out for zero. And and I won't get into the details of that. There was no harsh feelings about anyone involved. It was just a misunderstanding between Tim Weiser and I. And I chose not to sign I chose not to do it, not to sign what was put in front of me after the press conference to introduce me as a head coach. And but then you add to that eight first-year guys, 7 freshmen, and a JUCO transfer. And then your best player coming back, David Hoskins, is hurt. So I like the stories that first year are like I can write the day I write a book, it's going to be the greatest comedy scene of all time when people read the chapters detailing that first year at K-State. It's, like Jacob's not going to like this one, but, why not? So we got a feeling, the whole Coach Huggins, West Virginia, Frank on the saddle. So we fly in to meet with Michael Beasley right away. And Mike spoke about it on a podcast he did with Mike Miller and Udonis Haslam, that Memphis was had him surrounded at USA Basketball. I got hired on a Thursday, I want to say, and Delonte and I got on a plane that night to Memphis to go sit out with Mike. And Mike spoke about it we got in there and he was just messing with us. He was like, man, they're trying to full court press me, but you're my guys. I ain't going anywhere. But we flew in there for that. And we got word that Jacob might be kind of, because he had a real good senior year. So now he's recruit, he had signed with us, and now there's a coaching change. All these vultures came running in trying to get him to flip. So I flew into the house, and this is the first time I knew that Charlotte, his mom, because he's the baby of the house, called him Jakey. So I'm inside his house, and Jakey. So from that point on, anytime I wanted to piss him off in practice, I called Jakey, and he'd be so mad. He'd be like, yo, he'd come by me. Jake would stick out his lower lip anytime he was pissed. So it's the easiest thing to know when he was mad. He'd stick out his lower lip. He'd come by. He'd like, yo, Frank, man, stop with that Jakey stuff. Come on. I'd yell, come on, Jakey, get back in the drill. It was awesome. But we got stories, man. Jamar Samuels. Jamar's young. Jamar, his free throw shooting was bad, and he knew it, and he'd get worked up. And we'd be in practice doing something, and all of a sudden, it's the way I do free throws in practice. When I think we're struggling with free throw shooting, I don't put guys on the line and make them shoot free throws, 100 free throws. They got to do that on their own. We'll be in practice, and I'll just stop practice. I say, Jamar, you got 2. And now he's got to go to the line and 2 free throws. Or I'll say, Cole, one-on-one. So we'll be in whatever drill. We got to stop, and we all line up to shoot a one-on-one. And, just to force guys in that same game-type mentality to shoot free throws. And I'd say, Jamar, you got one-on-one. And you could look on his face right away. He'd be mad as hell because he knew what I was doing, and everybody would be lighting up. And as soon as he starts his dribbling, Brad would make a noise with his tongue, but he can do it loud as. So Jamar would line up to shoot it, and Brad would start making that noise, and Jamar would miss, and he'd turn and he'd stare at Brad like, I'm going to come over there and hit you over the head. Oh, man, we had some great times. There's so many stories with that team. Kurt was then, and 80% of the stories involved Kurt. Kurt was right in the middle of every story. But they were incredible guys, man, incredible guys. And talk about coaching guys hard, and them loving it, not running away from it, and them allowing me to grow as a coach. It's it's unbelievable group of people. I couldn't. My career could not have started around better people than from the alums at K-State to the media at K-State to the players, the administration, the people there. You guys remember when I got hired, man, that every media member outside of K-State folks went after me and went after John Weefeld and Tim Weiser for hiring me. And And the way that everybody circled their wagons to say, man, this is our guy. We got to figure this one out. Is something so powerful that I'll never forget.
Yeah, I mean, on that front, can you walk me through what life was like from, like, say, the time you found out Hugs was probably going to take that job or had the opportunity at West Virginia to the point where, hey, you're hired, you're the head coach, and you're on the plane to go see Mike and Jake that you were talking about there? Like, what was that time period like and that process like?
I don't think I've ever spoken publicly about that timeline. So I'm at the Final Four with Hugs, and Arkansas called. And Frank Broyles called them and offered them $2 million a year. And Hugs said, nah, thank you, hung up. And I was like, what was that? He said, Arkansas. He goes, I'm not leaving K-State. And I said, thank God. Because we had just, I just moved to Cincinnati, and now Cincinnati, K-State, and I got a young family. And I said, thank God. I knew Hugs was really happy. But in the back of my mind, I always knew that West Virginia was the one school that could create problems in that decision-making process. Well, I leave the Final Four. I go to Manhattan, back home, and I get a call from Hugs at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday or Tuesday. Monday. And he says, National Championship game day. Calls me and says, Frank, we got a problem. I'm thinking somebody cut class, somebody got arrested, because he was still at the Final Four. We lost a recruit, whatever. Who knows? And I'm like, what's up, Hugs? He's like, Beeline's leaving. And I was like, oh, I almost cursed here. Like, I was like, oh boy, here we go. So I hang up with him. That's on Monday. He flies back in. We Tuesday, he and I meet early in the morning for coffee. He spends the whole day with administration, makes the decision to take the job. So I'm going to call, makes the decision to take the job Thursday. Like, this was really hard. As much as I thought that job called he would go, I didn't realize, it was just then that I realized how much he loved being at K-State, because it was really, really hard. So Thursday at 5 a.m., he calls me. He says, I'm doing it. So he went in Thursday morning, give the news to Tim, to Weefald, to Bob Kraus, and then he calls me. He says, hey, I'm headed to the airport. So I get in a car, and I'm riding shotgun, and I've got a blue blazer with a gold tie on, and I'm headed to the airport to meet Hugs to get on the plane to fly to Morgantown. I get a call from Tim Weiser. He says, what are you doing? I said, I'm here at the house with the wife. I'm dressed, ready to go. I'm here at the house with the wife, trying to understand what's going on. He says, well, I need to meet with you. Are you available in about an hour? And I was like, yeah, let me check with her, Tim. I think I should be, but let me check with her. I had no idea, what the heck he was calling me for right there. This is Thursday. So this is Wednesday. So I hang up the phone. I call Hugs, who was in another car headed to the airport. He says, go back. I've told them, I know they're all pissed at me right now, but go back. I've told them they got to hire you. And I said, Hugs, he says, go back. If they give you the job, you got to take it. And so I went back. I got out of my outfit. I went right back, put on some purple, went right back in to meet with Tim. And that night, I went in and met with John Weefald at his house, and Bob Kraus and Tim Weiser. The next day, now they asked me and Delonte to come to this meeting. So we're over at, help me out here. Is it Anderson Hall, President's office?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have a meeting at Anderson Hall in the big conference room. And it's me and Delonte sitting way over on that side of the room. And then John, President Weefald, Tim Weiser, and Bob Kraus on the other side of the room. And we're at opposite ends of the table facing each other. And they give a whole dissertation, and then they turn around and they look at us and say, well, Frank, we're prepared to offer you the head coaching job at $600,000 a year for 4 years. And Delonte, we're prepared to offer you to be the associate head coach. I think the number was $400, and paying you $400,000 a year for 4 years. And Delonte and I sitting side by side, and we're looking right at them. Neither one of us flinch. We're just sitting there staring at them. And now they start getting nervous because we didn't flinch. We didn't answer. We didn't move. And President Weefalt says, hey, if you guys need a minute to talk about this, feel free, step outside. And say, yeah, let us do that for a second. We walked outside. We're like, holy shit, they offered us the job. Like, you got to be kidding me. We're calling our wives like, oh, hey, they offered me the job. This is incredible. True story. Then we walked back in and said, we're in. And we started hugging, and away we went, man. That was an incredible week from an emotional standpoint because of everything that involved there.
Well, that team, man, that first year, like I can tell you as a kid that had grown up and never seen K-State basketball do anything, and I get into school, I got there the year, your first year as head coach, seeing the Kansas win, you know, I mean, that was something that I honestly at that point wondered if I'd ever see in my entire life. Take me through like that day. Like, are there good stories from that game that still come to mind? Like, what is most pertinent to you when you think about beating Kansas at home and ending the streak there?
Well, we had a, understandably so, a rocky non-conference schedule. I think we're something like 8-5 or something like that in non-conference play. And now conference play starts, and we're starting to play better. Going into that game, I had no idea what I was walking into. Like, no one understands. Like, everyone can tell you about Kansas, K-State, blah, blah. Until you're not in it as a part of the rivalry, you have no idea what the emotion in the building is until you're actually in it that first time. So I had no idea what was going on. But I had to suspend a player the day before the game. And I'm not into advertising suspensions. I'm not trying to hide it from the opponent. Eventually people find out, but I don't want to take away two things. I don't want to tarnish a young person because I'm announcing that I suspended somebody. That makes me look like a disciplinarian. I'd rather people say, Frank said, you know what, because he yells, than advertise suspensions, and now he sounds like a disciplinarian. I'd rather people say negative stuff about me than put an X on a young person's chest. But that was one where I had to suspend them during a game, so everyone was going to find out. So I was just trying to keep it hush-hush because I didn't want to create a distraction for the team or put an X on the player's chest as being a bad guy. So I'm doing like outside the arena, it's like shoulder to shoulder, like students all night. And then Kevin Keachman was doing his show live from the concourse. So I'm doing the donuts and all that stuff and running around with the students outside. And Kevin had asked for me to come on his show. And I really didn't know Kevin back then. I'd heard the name, but he and I really hadn't spent too much time around each other. And Kevin, we've become friends. Kevin, at the time, was on his horse with the talk shows in Kansas City. And he had the personality that he didn't care. He was going to ask certain questions. So I sent word to him like, hey, man, the one thing Frank's not going to talk about is the suspension. And he being a K-State guy, I thought he would understand. So I go live, sit down, put my headphones on, live on the radio, said, hey, we're joined here with Frank Martin. We're so excited for today, blah, 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 blah. He looks right at me, live radio. He says, hey, Frank, the story that I want to talk about is that you had to suspend player A for the game today. Do you want to speak on that? I'm telling you, I had my headphones on. I was staring at him like, dude, I'm getting ready to choke slam you. And you have no idea the pummeling that you're going to take right now. And I was like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe this guy's doing this. And he even said that on the radio that he felt intimidated by the way I was looking at him because he felt that I was really aggravated. But now you move away from that, and then the game starts. And, Bees had the old line in the summer, we're going to beat them here, there, and in Africa. And after he said that, I said, Mike, you do realize that we haven't beaten them here in 24 years. You do comprehend that. That's all right, man. We're going to get him. And that special group, think about the three guys that game were really good. Him, Walker, Poland. All three were absurd. And then still to this day, most powerful moment I've been a part in sports. It wasn't the rushing of the court. Now you go into the locker room, you beat your rival, the whole deal. And I addressed the team in the locker room, and I come back out to do my radio show. And everybody was still on the court. I couldn't get to the table to go do my radio show with Wyatt and Stan. And as I'm walking through the crowd to try and get to the place, like people crying, like adults, older people, literally crying, tears. And I was like, wow. That's when I realized just how important K-State is to so many people in that community and surrounding university.
Frank, I think we could do this for 2 hours, but I know you have a meeting coming, so I might have to take you up on your offer.
You guys want to do it? I'm telling you, man. Like, hey, recruiting's done. I signed my team. We got 13 guys on scholarship. Break me up. I'm ready to go. No, seriously, you guys want to do it tomorrow, later today? You guys give me the date and time, and I'm in. Seriously,
we very well. I'll text you offline. We'll
text you when you're done. If you want to do it later today, I'm wide open the rest of the day. If you want to do something tomorrow, the next day, because I knew this was going to be a fun one here, man. Because it's a dear place to me.
Yeah, we got more memories to jog down memory lane. So we will do that, and we will call this part 1 of the series, if that works, John. And we'll figure out another time here soon to release part 2, and we'll have some more fun chatting with you, Frank.